Melt up all your metals, materials. I let up some deals with devils. Cats, rats, dog, fog ain't for rebels. Outcast the black, asylums in the ghetto. Keep your silence, how we grip the green racist faces. Juries like the song playing through the liberations. State my militant's lane and leaking information. Despise the crews. People please pour through.
A life without self-love is hate. Hate for yourself, hate for everyone else. Hate for yourself and hate for everyone else. You can't love anyone else without loving yourself first. Truly.
And in the black community,
you see self-hate all the time in the black community, from the detestment of someone just because of how they look, to how they speak, their intelligence levels, their talents or lack thereof. There's always some type of comparison of one another because we're not really, content and loving ourselves enough to want somebody else to be who they are and shine through.
Just like all training begins at home, a person's first teacher is that person's mother, guardian, father, whomever. But that's where a person learns love at also. You can't learn to love somebody else unless you learn to love yourself. So for me, self-love means knowing to take care of priorities first, taking care of home first, understanding who you are, what your place is in this world in connection to other people around you. Self-love, learning to know what's important, priorities, needs versus wants. For example, I've learned that if a person doesn't respect home, they're not going to know how to respect other people. They're not going to know. It's no fault of theirs, because if they haven't been taught it, how will they know?
self-love versus self-hate will always be a continued discussion that we have in our community, but I know that, through initiatives as such and others, that we will solve these issues and just really get back to loving each other.
I really found that this was an interesting question. It was a good question to reflect upon, because I know sometimes people immediately think of shades of beauty, such as, if a person is light-skinned or dark-skinned, or if a person has natural hair or relaxed hair. And I just didn't want to focus on that, because for me, African American beauty just kind of glows from within. It's because it's not about your shape or your size. For me, it's about how you carry yourself. And if you take pride in yourself and in your appearance and take pride in your accomplishments, I like when someone can walk down the street no matter what the hairstyle, but you can tell that that person just has a regalness to them, because it doesn't matter if they have on Gucci or $5 flip flops. Yeah. It's just the way I know I grew up. My grandmother always taught me to carry myself well, take pride in myself. You never know who you're going to bump into. You never know who you're going to meet. But to be prepared for that opportunity or for that experience. And I think because of that message, I've always really kind of taken pride in when I leave out, I never know who's going to see me.
When I was working in Marshall Fields, when they really called the store Marshall Fields, back in the 50s and the 60s, they wouldn't hire anyone that was my complexion or darker. Okay. They didn't start to hiring sales associates back in the 60s, in the late 60s or the early 70s, that was my complexion or dark. Wow. You was more like you use that term high yellow or red bone. Okay. I have a lady that I know very well, and she's a good friend. I would say a good associate in my life, and my son was a good friend with her children. Now, I'm not going to call her name, but she was what you would call a red bone, a high yellow. Yeah. And she got hired at Marshall Fields back in the early 70s. They accepted her to a certain extent, but they knew that she had the African blood in her. Okay. that she was more, you could say that she could pass more for Latino or something like that, you know.
Okay.
Now, when I come in there in the 80s, a black lady that was about 90 years old.
Young, black, professional, darker women have more trouble finding a guy than young, black, lighter skinned women.
So it goes back to that.
So it does.
Skin-
Unfortunately, those guys, they want somebody with long hair, light skin. I mean, the fraternity, homecoming queen,
Yeah.
which is a shame because that's a slap in a young girl's face.
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, they'll go out with them, but as far as marrying with somebody that's, they have this false ideal, just like the media promotes. You gotta look like Halle Berry, right? I mean, it's totally
And
ridiculous.
this black lady, she would come to Marshall Fields, and I guess she would choose what counter she wanted to go to, what sales associate of African descent she wanted to speak to. So one day she just come up to my counter and she said, it would make me so proud to see you young. She was still using that color girls working here. She said, I remember a time when I walked into Marshall Fields when I was working down in the loop, South Loop. And when it was cold outside, it was freezing. And I wanted to get warm before I got to my destination. And she said, I would come through Marshall Fields. And she said the people that was at the door would tell you that you had to keep on walking. And she said, I knew that day would come when they would hire someone that looked like you. And she said, I'm so proud of it.
And I see so many black kids that go through, even those that make it. So who is their manager? Who is their publicist? It's another white guy. They don't even go to black lawyers and those kind of things to help them get along the way. It's another form of enslavement, as you say.
And then this lady went on to say, and it made me really, to listen to her story, it just really put something on my mind as working there as a sales associate. And she said, when Mahalia Jackson come into this store, she went up to the fur department. And she said they would not let her try on the fur. Because they didn't know she was Mahalia Jackson.
Okay.
Mahalia Jackson went back and got her a Jewish lawyer. They brought a suit against Marshall Fields at that time.
Wow.
And she said, you know what? From that day on, that's the reason why you are here. So always remember that. That's what she told me. That's the reason why you are here, because Mahalia Jackson made it possible for you to be here.
Okay.
And, so that goes back to that color thing.
Yeah.
1/3 drop of African blood in you, they consider you to be a nobody. If you brown, you almost accept it, but if you black, go back. Go back to Africa or anything, because you can even go back to the Marcus Garvey movement too, with all that color complex. So I think the color complex now is more prevalent in our race than it is in the European race. In the African race, more so than the European race
that I work with,
we still look at
they
that
come
color.
from broken homes where the N word is used, the B word is used, MF is used, and it's used amongst their first teachers, their mothers, their aunts, their brothers, and their sisters. So all they know is a woman as a B, their friend as a me, as the N word. Ninjas versus NIGGERs or NIGGAS. Supposedly there's a difference.
Which there isn't. The NIGGA, they've tried to recreate it as a term of endearment, but at the end of the day, it's not endearment. The word shouldn't be used.
Exactly. I agree. They are a product of their environment. Like everyone is a product of their environment. But also, I think part of that self-love, why we have gotten away from it, specifically African Americans, but you see it in other communities, but since we're talking about specifically African Americans, we don't respect ourselves. Part of the reason why a lot of young people don't respect themselves, they don't know what self-love is because they have broken homes. A lot of young parents are raising young children. Grandmothers are 30 versus 60, 50s.
When I talk about the subjugated syndrome, it's different from what sometimes people call post-traumatic stress. And I said, well, post-traumatic stress is when you receive a direct experience, and because of it, you have flashbacks on that direct experience. But when it comes to the subjugated syndrome, it's something that we as a people need to overcome. And it's not a direct experience. It is a experience that we learn through generational conditioning. For instance, when I led the 6 a.m. call to prayer at the Million Women's March.
For me, it comes from a larger societal issue in terms of integration. Integration really wasn't really good for us. It helped us maybe politically, socially, connecting with the social services that we earned, but integration really, I think, didn't do a lot for the community as a whole, because as we began to integrate in schools, we wanted to grow and be away from our communities. Therefore, this goes back to what I was speaking about earlier, we don't have examples. With integration, with more money, with more access to schools, with more access to services, as our income increased, you saw the black flight within the black community.
We had t-shirts, and the t-shirts said, Grandmama taught Mama, Mama taught me, but it should have, and I will teach you, but it should have said, Grandmama taught Mama, Mama taught me, and I will teach you anew. Because the question is, who taught Grandma? Grandmama had a slave master mama who never did anything to make her less than a property thing, not a human being person. Because the Dred Scott decision was very clear. It said blacks have no rights. It didn't say people of color, Asians, immigrants, refugees, minorities. It said blacks have no rights, that whites are bound to respect. They are a subjugated race, inferior and subordinate, whether they are emancipated or not. The definition that the Dred Scott gave was a subjugated race, not colored race or African American race or Negro race or black race, but a subjugated race.
Black people do not themselves manufacture any of the guns or the bullets that come in the confines of the black community. It is white people who bring these weapons of death in our community.
It's there. There's envy, there's fear. That's all there, of course. And that just, when black people especially, like, unfortunately suffer from the worst case of that within our community, because we are often the ones who are oppressed or put down for some reason. And what we don't realize ourselves, which would probably make things a lot better for us, is that we actually are very powerful people, mind, body, and spirit. And I say that because we have great minds. We're from back in slavery days and before, we're always able to figure things out with small resources, and not with the educational knowledge that a lot of people have been allotted due to class or position in society. But our minds we are thinkers, we are believers, we are faith-driven people, and we are very, very strong
willed and we are very intelligent and smart, and we don't always realize that. A lot of it is because of the unfortunate passing down, not just from other communities, but our own, because that's what's been embedded in our heads and what we see on TV,
The minute that slavery stopped, there was no orientation or adjustment period, and so in order for us to feel a part of society, we tried to emulate our slave owners in any way that we could. And so we wanted to dress better. So we want to spend an inordinate amount of money on clothes, on cars, on things that are very external, even to the fact that we may not have a place to live, but we want to drive a good car. We want to make a good impression because we don't ever want to be perceived as ever having been slaves. And through that need to not ever project poverty, we in fact become entrapped by the desire to own things that maybe the masters had or that the masters thought were important.
When I grew up, there were professional African American doctors, lawyers, carpenters, in the community. We didn't have to go outside our community for doctor services, dental services, and things like that.
Groceries too.
Grocery stores, black businesses. Mm-hmm. But with integration, in that light, in that aspect, we actually hurt our community. So as those professional examples moved out, black people, young black kids didn't see, oh, I want to be this when I grow up. I want to be that when I grow up, because that person lives across the street from me. Mm-hmm. They could only identify with it possibly with members in their school or when they went out to other communities or what they saw on TV. And we know that the images that we see on TV are really not reflective of us.
Businesses that only service a very small percentage of the population. Mm-hmm. If you want to own a bank and start a bank, they're not going to give you much money. When I say they, and I shouldn't say they in quotes, it's very difficult to get enough funding. I'll tell you, we were in business for ourselves.
Okay.
My ex and I.
Yeah.
And we had a 5 or 10 cent store.
Okay.
Which was an old Woolworths. It really, and you probably don't even know what Woolworths was. It's one of the early 5 and 10s. It predates the dollar store.
Woolworths?
Yeah.
I remember that store.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we bought one that was in a neighborhood that was declining. Okay. And we were gung-ho on businesses that we should start our own businesses. Yeah. So it was not a problem. It was a problem in that the bank did not want to give us money, even though my ex had been in the retail business for years. Yeah. They still did not. He had to do all kinds of proof that he was able to run a store. So we finally got the money because we finally found a banker who was empathetic. And there's always one or two, but it takes up all your time to go and seek him out. Okay. So we opened up this business, and people came to shop because we were the only thing in town that wasn't a barbershop or a. But I tell you, we got maybe $100,000 to open the store, and of course those stores cost a lot of money because you need a lot of inventory. Well, there was this kid that came along, a white kid, who wanted to open up a McDonald's. In hindsight, that's what we should have done. But they gave him $250,000 without batting an eye. He had absolutely no restaurant experience, nothing at all. But we had to go through all kinds of proof that we'd be able to run it, and he had to do nothing. That's the kind of disservices and misservices that we always face.
Okay. All started with whites or just Europeans, reigning their dominance and pushing that ideology that this is what the world should be. The world should be white. The closer you are to them, the closer you are to perfect, because they made themselves perfect when they weren't. Because they, and they did that because they knew that we had something that they couldn't obtain. Like even with us being broken down mentally, physically, spiritually, for generations. You still have geniuses who rise above that. Imagine if we were educated during slavery, right? If you still have, geniuses who rise above these circumstances and people who come out of this. Imagine if we never went through that. We would most certainly be at the top, and they had to do that out of fear. Because, the ultimate thing is the reality of the situation is that Caucasians fear extinction. And, one drop of black blood makes you black. So in order to avoid extinction, you must get rid of the black race. Other than that, we will populate and the world will be black as it originally was.
So, how did the slave master parents talk to the slave? They would not just tell them, go over there and sit down. They would say, go over there and sit down, lazy, shiftless, black, nappy-haired, big nose, big lips, all of that language to say sit down. So when somebody white or Asian or Hispanic or somebody else is talking to their children, they just say go over there and sit down. We are the only race of people that will say something about your color. Sit your blacks so-and-so down. Sit your navy-headed so-and-so down. We're the only people that has that characteristic, because that is what the subjugated syndrome has left us. And without being repaired, without reparations, without anything to deal with 243 years of a subjugated syndrome, we haven't dealt with that at all.
I'm getting caught up in some stuff with my brother. They wanted me to tell on him if I did it, and so they pretty much tried to screw me. And so what I did was took probation, which is a plea bargain, and that's what goes on. And so I'm all like, oh, okay, so I can get off, and they're like, no. They're like, yeah, you can go home today. And I'm like, oh, really? Definitely, whatever it is. I have been locked up for 120 days. So it was actually 121 that day. And so it was just ridiculous. And because of something that he did. And I didn't even know that I was even involved in it. So 7 years down the line, they asked me for my ID. They do random ID checks in the neighborhoods. If you're around and the police pull up, you have to have your identification. So I give them my ID, and they're like, they're running everybody's ID, and they come, and they're like, yeah, you're under arrest. And I'm like, what? I'm on my way to Walmart.
Okay, we're talking about black incarceration. The levels are ridiculous. Our kids go to jail faster, quicker, and for longer terms than counterparts doing the same darn thing, whether they're selling dope or whether they're I guess, and it depends on the type of dope. I mean, look at what's happening right now. Pot is probably going to be legalized within the next 10 years or so. And yet we have lots of kids in jail for being caught with an ounce of pot, 3 ounces of pot, whatever. Because we are not using those substances at the rate that the people to whom we're selling it to, right? But only we go to jail. It's like the story of the John and the prostitute. The prostitute goes to jail, the John goes to jail. It's the same kind of thing. But it's a shame because it's impacting our whole family life when all these guys are going to jail, and you see it in the way they dress. It's just, it's so disgusting. I don't know how they walk in them, first of all. I expect the pants to fall off, and I don't want to see dirty underwear anyway. That's all I see. Why are we emulating? We emulate the wrong thing. Why are we emulating prison life? Because that's what it is. Shoes not tied, because in prison you don't have no shoelaces. And no belt, that's why your drawers are hanging off. I mean, why are we emulating that? That should not be. So many kids going to jail because those gangs are run by men who are 30 and 40 years old, who are proselytizing our youngsters so that they're spending their whole life in jail. I mean, so what happened to our own self-esteem? And why are we doing that to somebody else's kid? It's making a mule out of them. They're just, they're fodder, no different than having to go into the service. They can be shot, killed, jailed, in prison. I'll just pick up the next kid off the street. It's a shame. So we're breaking down our own family structure and filling up the prisons. And we don't own none of them, even though they're being privatized. We don't own none of them. Yeah, our folks are there in greater numbers. Why don't we own a prison?
Yeah. Own our own prison.
Right. I mean, it all comes back to that. We're the prison guards that stand there hitting people over the head. We're not the owners, though.
A lot of people come home and fall trapped to recidivism, you know what I'm saying, and end right back up in that jail industrial complex. We're doing a self-love and self-hate documentary and production, and we getting people's opinions on that, and definitely you and I have a lot of brothers who've been affected by the jail industrial complex. Ourselves, like I said, you were fortunate to come home to a younger brother who still held it down, sort of like the way I have with my brothers when they come home, or the brothers who coming up to avoid the situation of understanding different routes, so that you can get back into the mix and don't have the dependency of getting denied the job applications and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? How do you feel the jail industrial complex is affecting brothers in the community?
It seemed like to me, like, well, it really don't seem like to me. It's like it's plain as day, like, back in the days in the early 30s, 20s, 40s, whichever way you may see it, even all the way up to the 60s when the slavery was going on, it was some type of way that how can I pull it? Let me try to say it politically correct. The Anglo-Saxons, found some type of way to enslave our people,
to the conditions, most definitely.
To the conditions of which they had us in.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, but we all know if no one do know, we know that who built everything that's here right to this day. So, in some type of way, it couldn't continue, which was the days with Malcolm and all of those days, bless their soul, and to this day. So they still figured a way through incarceration. You can see how you can get to this bus bond, which they call it, and how they swap the cattle to each joint. We shackle, chain, stamp, everybody know where they going. That's our stamp. He going, this whole bus going to Menard, that bus going there, that's your stamp, like of which they stamp the cows and the pigs or whatever.
My brother-in-law just got out of prison, but he doesn't know how to reform himself out of the prison because he was beat into like this lifestyle of you stay in your room, you eat at this time, you move at this time, you talk at this time, you breathe at this time, and you go in this time. And it's like, for me, I've experienced like going to jail before, and even though it was something that I shouldn't have did, it was just like, okay, now I'm in this place, and you automatically know how to adapt, because if you don't, you're gonna get beat. So once you go into a cell, you know that it's time to, that you're gonna have to remove some clothes, you're gonna have to do what the guards say, the women that may try to rape you say, you gotta do what everybody tell you to do. And the thing is that when you get out of jail, it's the same thing. It's like, unless people know how to break cycles of saying, even though I went through this, now I have to do this to like break this mentality of jail. And the thing is, like, no one know how to just absolutely come together and just like each one teach one. Everybody have to just, I've been to jail, this how you gotta survive. Nobody has a mentality, I've been to jail and this is something, no more survival. It's just now I'm just living. So nobody don't know how to live no more. And it's basically like it's impossible, because you have more people that's going to jail today. And it's like, I hear stories from a lot of people, and it's like, I went to jail, and you go to jail and you have like the black men go to jail, they get raped, now all their manhood gone. So it's like, you want the man to be the man.
I think it would be a very important
that's why
topic
everything's so confused,
or
because you
book
got like
for African Americans
one
to
man
read.
Who created something,
It's very important to our
like
survival.
The entire world.
Back in the 60s, that's when I started noticing African American people's having conflict about the color
and about the class. And today you can even see that prevalent in the African American community, the color and the class. Now I can go back to slavery of topics that I have read in books about the African American with that color line. Willie Lynch, he used the house slave against the field slave. Now the house slave, they were considered working in the house as maids and butlers and things like that. The field slave worked out in the fields. Now the house slave was basically the slave master's children. And the field slave was basically 100% of that African descent from the continent of Africa. That's prevalent today in the 21st century because today we use that color line and that class. And that color line and that class is destroying our peoples as a race of peoples.
I wasn't, a dark African black, so it's like we're like we come in all different shades and colors. I feel like because I am like I was definitely like awarded more opportunities.
No, be honest.
So they call me the star of the ghetto on my block. Like I'm written on the star of the ghetto. Basically because I'm light skinned.
You have pride in the work that you do. When you have respect in the work that you do. Self-love is limitless. And it is what we make it.
Having the right depictions of God shown so people can have an appreciation and understanding of God being someone that is like them, and they originate from someone who's a God that's like them. So you have the religiosity, the spirituality aspects of it. You have the business aspects of it. So that if we're not owning our own businesses, people want their kids to have a shot at this tokenism and what the civil rights has got us, and so they want the kids to be acceptable to the man when they go in there and interview. So you have people seeking out their mate because of those reasons and having that kid with the good hair type of statements. You have that in the business aspect. So as long as we not own it, you're gonna have children, people seeking mates that's gonna make that kid able to be competitive with the image that the token is supposed to be, and that's someone the lighter the better. That's just the way it is. That's the way they see it. They're more comfortable with those types of images. You have the same caste systems in South America. You have them in a lot of the Caribbean. You have them in it's pretty much so business-wise, that's just going to be the correction. We're going to have to own the businesses and hire our people, point blank period. Otherwise, they'll be able to select from us who will fill these token roles. And then the people who they select amongst us will be so caught up in the buffoonery and they'll be so much in the house Negro type of mentality that they won't even get out in their position and call out the wrong.
I'm from Humboldt Park, the Puerto Rican side of town, and as far as race, I was born, I'm half black and half Puerto Rican, so as far as me fitting into a culture, I've always had a difficulty. The black side of my the black side on my father's side, they never really accepted me because I was too Hispanic to be black, and on the black side I was too black to be Hispanic, so I never really fitted in. I always got into fights. I was shunned, I was talked about, I was degraded and blackballed by friends, family, community members, just pretty much everybody, just based off my skin color. Wow. Hispanic women don't really care too much for me because they think I'm too black to be, to carry on their cultural traditions or whatever. Wow. But as far as black women, if I date a dark-skinned woman, they'll look at me as, oh, he's like a bougie Sadiddy, grew up on the north side because I don't talk with a ghetto yo homie yo accent because I needed to shed that mentality to get out the situation I was in. Yeah. And they think of it as I'm either I'm either a good DNA sample, I'll be a good baby daddy, give them a good kid with hair and, you know, pretty features and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, they can basically just run over me because they feel black men rule everything, and me not being as dark as the men that they usually choose, you know what I mean? Like, that makes me lesser of a man, let alone a black man. I've been sitting at a stoplight and had women just pull up to me randomly. Oh, can you give me a baby? Just because you light skinned with good hair and this and that. And once I get to talking to them and let them know like where my head is at and where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to do in my life, they'll look at me like, oh, you ain't no hood nigga, you can't keep it street and all this other stuff.
Wow.
And it's like they respect men like that. And like, how can you respect a man that doesn't have any ambition in life, that doesn't want to go anywhere? Like,
when we look at this whole thing of emulating white people, especially females, we're trapped because your hair, your clothes, your self-image is always based on a quality that you will never achieve because you're not a white woman. You know, when I see black blondes and black redheads, I consider the amount of destruction that you have to do to your hair in order to bleach all the black out and become a blonde or redhead. And what does that say to you? Because even though I occasionally see a naturally redhead person, black person, they don't seem comfortable in it either. Because it's such an unusual thing, and most of the time, not only do they have naturally red hair, but their skin color is sort of that palish, what naturally red hair would do for you, or a black person is naturally blonde, and certainly it begs the question that maybe closer in their heritage there's somebody there who was white.
I transitioned into getting my hair relaxed, and I had a standing appointment every week, but it just really, for me, it was about, you know, keeping myself up, making sure that I present myself well. I felt like when I looked good, sometimes I felt good too. And it was a good mask sometimes, even if I wasn't feeling really good. I looked good, so I could kind of play the part. But once I got to college and got to really, I started exploring, who am I? Who is Michelle? Especially who am I as a person outside of my family, because I went away to school. And I decided that I wanted to cut my hair off, and I wanted to, you know, have this liberating experience of going natural. And I thought it was going to be something like just a phase for me, that it was just going to be a hairstyle that I transitioned into something else. But for me, going natural ended up becoming like a way of life. And so I didn't go back to, you know, doing another hairstyle. And so now I think I'm going to be celebrating my 20th year of going natural next year.
That's wonderful.
I didn't know about the skin color first. Okay. Years ago, I was at an employment agency, and they said they wanted a light-skinned Negro. And the guy said, okay, you're okay.
Okay.
I said, what? Light skin. I had no idea they were doing it. And then it was a real terrible family that lived over us when I lived in Ivy Wells, a project that was torn down recently. And he's called me a yellow something. I said, oh,
yellow boy?
No,
yellow girl, high yellow girl? Because
no, he was a very terrible child.
Okay.
So he called me a name and he used the word yellow in it.
Okay.
And so then one of my co-workers, she was browner skinned than I am, and she told about the racism that went on with the color of her skin. So it's a real thing now. And then I hear that some of the ladies are saying that they want to have a baby with somebody, and I think they're picking somebody with lighter skin.
We have to ask ourselves the essential question, like, I can't control the skin I was born in. That has to be the overarching goal. I can't control the skin that I was born in. I can't also use it as an obstacle, as an excuse to say, because of this, I can't make it. You know, we can't control that. We just have to control maybe how we handle situations that come up with that. We have to still try to create our own image. We have to be producers versus consumers. And we have to create our own identity. And I think that it'll be a struggle that's going to continue until we gain better self-love for ourselves. We have to teach it to our kids.
And reestablish and have a command of, economic command of our communities with the businesses and produce. We have to give back to ourselves instead of giving to other cultures. Not that it's nothing wrong with shopping, but how about start, like you said, start at home and start within us and establish something that we have, because there are a lot of cultures that they feed off of. They make money off of what was essentially something that we created.
Yeah.
And just being in education as well, I know that young people are going to see me and be impacted by me. And it's not so much as, my complexion, but just how do I impact, me being a black female, how do I impact others in society? How do I interact with them? Is it in a positive way? I'm used to African American women being loving and nurturing, yet also on that same side, strong and independent. And I find myself gravitating towards that now. But just being in education allows me to get in touch with that nurturing side. And I like that as well. I love to see black women and black men who come together to work with children, to make sure that children are successful. To me, and that's such a beautiful experience. So for me, it's not always about the black beauty. For me, isn't necessarily something that's a physical beauty. It's just something that I feel just resonates from us. It glows. It becomes part of our aura.
Pan-Africanism is the political concept that was pushed by people like Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, and many other brothers and sisters who gave their life to uplift and unite our people on a global basis. Pan-Africanism means that if you're a person of African descent, it doesn't make a difference whether you live in the United States, Britain, Jamaica, Africa, if you're a black in China, if you're a black man in Japan or a woman. If you are a person of African descent, then you all subscribe to the concept that wherever we are as black people, as people of African descent, that we should respect, love, uplift, and unify with one another. And also with the idea locked in our brain cells that Africa belongs to all of us, and that we should do what we can to unite and also benefit from the mineral resources of Africa, that regardless of what tribe that we come from, we're all one people, united against the concept of white supremacy, which has destroyed basically the whole planet.
As we was kids though, when we was little, I'm 34, so the generations has changed.
Okay.
There are less parents involved. Okay. There's less grandmas involved, less aunties involved. So it's become something like I want to say man for himself. Right. Situation. So the parents are not more involved because, hey, I got other things to do.
Right.
So I'm gonna send my kid.
Okay.
I'm just send my child to school.
Right.
So they got the mentality of, if it don't involve with me, I'm not gonna get involved.
Okay.
I'm not gonna get involved.
Yeah.
So in return, that messes with like I said, from the principal to the teachers to the students.
Yeah.
And it's more so of a community not bonding anymore.
Okay.
That's what it is.
And Malcolm defined black nationalism as black people controlling the politics and economics of our community in the same way if you go in Chinatown. If the Chinese people control the politics and economics of their community. If you go in Little Italy, it is the Italians that control the politics and economics of their community. You understand what I'm saying? That means that the politicians, if they don't work for the best interest of the black community, they get kicked out of office. That means that in our community, it is not the Jews, it is not the Italians, it is not the Koreans, it's not the Arab, the Arabs. You understand? It is not them that control the money that comes to our hand. It is us. The money leaves our hands, it goes in the hands of other black people for the benefit of the black community.
That we do need to get back to the basics on all of this. Like, it takes a village to raise a child. Use natural resources. You know, so I'm saying there's a mindset that's been embedded, not just with outside of our community, but within our community. And that's because of what we see on TV. You know, if there were more people who really wanted to actually do something about these things instead of just always having these types of conversation all the time, I think that would be the start of it, you know, like, and I know that if there are more young people who, again, could somehow think beyond what they're used to or what they've seen or what their family's been used to, that's where it starts too. That's where it could be more influential. Young minds are great minds. A lot of the old.
When you have the idea of self-love, talk about self-love on a personal level, it's like if I don't have examples in my home, someone that I can relate to, maybe I can see examples in my community. But when you don't have those examples in your community, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to have to connect with what I know, what I see on TV, what I see in magazines, or what somebody might tell me in those schools. And so when we talk about in those schools, that opens up a whole nother dynamic, because as a result of the black flight in the communities, in terms of professional blacks leaving their community to want to go live in other communities because they didn't want to be around lower class blacks, country blacks, those blacks, they wanted to be better because I guess they had the money. Young black children began to see like, okay, well, I want to do the same thing. So I'm going to seek my love in other areas, possibly. It doesn't apply to all cases, but it applies to, from what I see, that's just my
perspective. We can say something different from bad hair and good hair. We can say you have strong hair because you're a strong person. And other people have weak hair. Our little boy said to me, he said, even if you pull it up with bobby pins, it'll flop back down. I said, yes, because it's weak. And all races come from us. And I tell them, you know, if it wasn't for this fat nose, some people would not have a nose on their face at all. You see these juicy lips, they had to get some, or some people wouldn't have any lips on their face at all, because everything came from blackest to brown, to red, to yellow, to white. We are the parents of civilization, and the Lion King story is our story. When the lion stands up, everything on the planet will be put in place. But we have been told that we're the boys and girls, but we are not the boys and girls. We're the parents that are supposed to tell the boys and girls what to do. We have the DNA finds, the oldest bones, the archaeological finds. The oldest bones ever dug up was that of an African woman in the continent of Africa. We have the DNA. Only our DNA could have created all the other races. Nothing ever gets whiter. And that is the big fear. If we make love, we can create one race. Everybody else has to kill up everybody else. If white people want to make one race, they got to kill up all the blacks, all the browns, all the yellows, and all the reds.
My problem with a lot of these gender-based wars is how they're pitting one against the other. There's no need for all black male group or all black female group, in my opinion. We face the same enemy. Because what I don't like to see from that comes from these. First of all, it'd be a feminist based type of thing, and we know feminism doesn't have the interests of the black woman or the black male. They only want to pit us against one another. There's no need for black male doesn't have a history of degrading our women, so that we need a feminist type of agenda amongst us. We have a history of Ma'at. This is what history was based on, and this has been the height of civilization, in which women were given the most rights and unprecedented. Still ain't been matched today. Ain't no other religion. All the religions that came from Ma'at has undermined the woman's position and has attacked her role from her original being the God and the creator that she had for thousands of years within African spirituality. All the other religions that came after that has been attacking that legacy. Alright? So this is what we need to teach our people as far as about black women. We don't have a history to need that.
When you look at the trajectory in terms of long term, the lack of self-love starts within the home, and then it reaches out to the community. So we as a race of people, we don't know how to connect. We've lost a connection. We're trying to get back to it, but we're using other examples of trying to connect with who we are as a people. And I think that's why our relationships are now torn and disconnected, because our idea of self-love is maybe based on someone else's image of what it means to really love yourself. Do I have to wear makeup? A woman has a right to wear makeup. She wants to look better. We can't always say it's because it's a white thing. Women like to wear makeup. They want to look good. But when it comes to maybe doing other things to represent somebody else, you want to look like somebody else. When you look in the mirror, you don't like the way you look.
Then that's where self-hate comes in.
Women take men for granted and not give them the due respect of being where they're supposed to be and who they are, as their role is supposed to be meant out to be played in a woman's life and in the grand scheme of things. So they undermine men by saying, well, sisters doing it for themselves. You've heard that, right? You've heard all types of things that a man can't do nothing for me that I can't do for myself. All men are the same. These things undermine the very nature of a man, especially an African American man who's already feeling low self-esteem, low self-worth, going back to self-hatred. So this all is compounded. And let's say he doesn't have a father in his life to help his self-esteem. Then a lot of times he gravitates to the woman who reminds him of the mother. If the woman's not giving him no love in that area, again, go back, it's going to push him more to the side of self-hatred.
It takes a man to realize his role, and he has to check his ego himself. He has to realize what he can and can't do, what he can and can't obtain, and what life presents to him, and what he's able to do with it. And without a woman to help guide him there, it takes a black woman to shape a good black man, but it also takes a black man to know his responsibility and his role in society to wanna take that role on. It takes a strong, smart man, not just necessarily a black man. It takes a strong, smart man to realize your worth, because a lot of men don't realize their worth either. You have to realize once you lay down with a woman, it's like that's the greatest gift you can give anybody. Is giving somebody yourself. So it takes a strong black man to know what he has and his abilities to and what to do with it. And it also takes a strong black woman to know what she has and how to shape a black man, because black men are shaped by black women. Whether we want to or not, we come from them, and you know what I mean, and we adorn them, and we care for them, and we protect them.
There's no excuse in 2012 why a black parent will constantly talk to their children about Santa Claus and the traditional concept and images that we have been given of the white Christmas, for example. It's imperative that every black family learn, know about, and be able to explain, run down Kwanzaa and the Nguzo Saba and what they represent, because this is a holiday that was created by an African in America that is not materialistic like Christmas. It's not about spending money that you don't have. It's about inculcating and educating some values in our youth. And it's a holiday that strongly involved the youth in the candle lighting ceremony, for example. You understand? And then when you go through the various principles called the Nguzo Saba, these are ideas and concepts that plant values within our mind that helps us to unify and love one another. So a person, a black parent, mother or father who doesn't know anything about Kwanzaa, this is a disgrace.
I was just so alarmed to see a young lady wearing a t-shirt that says, I am a B-I-T-C-H. What does she feel so proud about wearing that t-shirt? That is totally ridiculous. I have a t-shirt that says, I am a queen. And I will not expect anything but queenly manners from you. So we have to elevate ourselves up to say that you're not powerful because you wore that t-shirt that says you're a B-I-T-C-H. You're powerful because you have respect. And you demand respect. So I want them to look up to being respectful. And that way, they won't treat their children so bad. Some of them will be jerking their children and cursing them out. That's not the type of term to use for your children. I had one gentleman who emailed me and he said that if anyone told his child to follow Jesus, he would tell the child to tell them F-U-C-K and walk away. I had to email him back. I said, no. I know this is a very touchy subject, but we don't need to teach our children profanity. There's so many verbs we can use to let somebody know how we really feel. And not use profanity. You want your child to go around saying that for real. So we have to keep on getting that across to people. If you have a real strong opinion, you can say it without cursing. You can say it. And be a colorful person by figuring out a way to say it without cursing. And you'll be respected more. Look how he told that man off and he didn't even curse. You know, or look how she told him off and she didn't even curse. You know, so that's something to be looked up to. Look how the person can really express their feelings.
We don't want to be thought of as, and then there's them, as a byproduct of something else, you know, because of what we've done to this, what we've created in this world is so rich, going back, you know, millions of years, not millions, but thousands and thousands of years. I think if we took a return back to those images, to see them for what they are, the ancient Egyptians who built this community, who built this world when Egypt was black, I think if we, you know, had a return to that education, understanding that America, in many parts of the world, they were going to Africa, black Africa, to learn what they needed to learn, when parts of black Africa was the center of learning. I think if it started there in the home, and especially in the schools, if black people really, really, really took a look just at learning about that part of their history, going back before we were slaves. Because personally, when I was growing up, I didn't know anything about ancient Egyptians in terms of black Africa, black Egypt. I didn't know anything about that. I thought our life began as slaves. My mother used to say that, you know, no, we came from great people, but I didn't know it. She didn't have access to the books based on the environment she grew up in, but she knew somehow that we were more than what was given to us.
This has never been taught the black male, the young black male. They think that also being a man means how long your private part is, how many inches This is the wrong concept, and we have failed to rise above those false stereotypical concepts. So when we see one another, we identify each other by the outer shell as opposed to the inner person.
I think that if we took a critical look with no biases, and just took a look back in history and said, okay, there was skin stratification in Egypt. There was racial discrimination during that time. The problems that we're dealing with now, in terms of the questions that you're asking me, those same questions were issues back then. You understand? This is not new. I really feel this is not new in terms of the issue of race, color discrimination. I don't think this is new. I really think the same issues in terms of that was dealt with then. Okay, I really feel that, and it's the struggle. I think that's why the black race is a race that has to be looked upon as a race of struggle, as a race of triumph and determination. You know what I mean? This could not be new to us, and I think if we took a return back, a migration back with our minds intellectually, with a critical lens, and we critically looked at the issues that was facing Egyptians in Black history during Black African times, we'll see some of the same questions that came up: issues of identity, the issues of light versus black, interracial discrimination. I'm not liking you because you're a few shades lighter than me. Therefore you feel you're more privileged than me. I really think that was still going on then. And if we just look at how some of those issues were resolved and how the strategies that were used to overcome, we might learn a lesson today, because we have major issues with, like as you said, self-love versus self-hate, and it's destroying us as a race of people. And I think maybe in 30 years it will be interesting to see what will be the plight of the Black community in terms of your actual question, your initial question. It will be interesting, to know that.
Wrote this poem called Reparations for African America. And it goes like this: we must remember but not become sad. We must not become discouraged if our oppressor gets mad. It is important that we share our stories with the young so they know the work that has been done. They need to know about the Black Holocaust so that all repairs are made to us, connecting with each other, respecting each other, and uniting for reparation is the key. In 2008, we did it. We all voted. We here in the U.S., and even our citizens in the military and those living abroad. Did you see the full page ad in the Chicago Tribune saying, Republicans for Obama? Did you hear John Colin Powell say, I'm for Obama for president? 4 years passed so quickly. Now it's 2012 and we must re-elect President Obama. Black leaders are being recognized all over the world. Miss Michelle Jean became the first Black Governor General of Canada on September 27, 2005. Miss Ellen Johnson Sirleaf became the first Black female president in Liberia, Africa, in 2006. Mr. Rotana Adabara, a Nigerian, was elected mayor in Ireland on July 2007. Senator Barack Obama became the first Black elected as president in USA on November 4, 2008. And again, we must realize he was re-elected 2012. But please note, John H. Hanson, a Black Moor, was president 1781 to 1782. A lot of people don't believe that. But at that time, we weren't known as the USA. But this is a black man. Check it out on the back of a $2 bill. Or keep on making inquiries about that $2 bill, and you will see him pictured there. Dr. Peter Bosman, a doctor from Ghana, became the first black mayor in Slovenia's history in Yugoslavia in 2010. So don't you see we are a great people? And so I was so proud to share that with our members so that we will know that we are great people and we deserve the best. And that was part of my reparation awareness.
In regards to self-love versus self-hate, I just want to say that it does start at home. It is important for us all to take responsibility in whatever means that we can to give back to our community.
You believe in yourself.
In whatever stages that we are in life. And
there is nothing.
We see somebody that needs some help, give back to them, help them.
That fears you.
Help them get to the next step that they need to be in life if they're struggling. Because it is
you have love for yourself.
It does start at home. There might be individual successes in the black community.
When you love your love,
until we as a whole come together on things that we need to be there.
When you have respect,
will still be voids in
the work that you do. Self-love is limitless, and it is what we make it. It is nothing that can be taken away from us, only if it is allowed. Self-love reaches so deep into the soul. It's only something that can be bestowed upon us by the Creator, and it can be taken away from us by the Creator. Self-love is like the feeling you have when you're doing something that you couldn't live without. Like for me, self-love is performing. Self-love is being happy every day. Self-love is knowing that I can put my mind towards anything and be successful. What is self-love for you?